Welcome back. Remember when we told you hope for the best, prepare for the worst? Well, make that prepare for the worst, pray for the best. Over the last 48 to 72 hours, we have gone from computer models showing Irma staying off Florida's east coast with minimal impact to the Sun Coast to right up to the gut. A storm track cutting through the state, raising the very possibility of hurricane-strength winds here on the Sun Coast. And joining us for more is ABC 7 Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan, Sarasota Police Chief Bernadette DePino, and joining us by Skype is Scott Wells, who helped lead disaster response for FEMA and the Defense Department, including the recovery from Hurricane Katrina. Chief, let me start with you. What is the status of the Sarasota Police Department? Are you ready for this, and what is your primary mission in the next 48 hours?
Yes, our police department is prepared and ready to go. We have our staffing levels, we have a plan in place, and we're ready to go and move forward to keep our community safe. Our number one objective right now is to notify people about the evacuation, that Zone A needs to be evacuated as soon as possible. We're helping with shelters, we're providing security there, and you're going to see extra police officers out patrolling with their lights on to ensure people know we're there. If they need us, they can flag us down, and we're there to just keep an eye on things to keep our community safe.
Scott, let me ask you this, because Bob and I were talking a little bit earlier today, and it occurs to us one of the biggest challenges that, unlike other major hurricanes like Katrina or like Harvey that we just saw, in those cases you're dealing with one or two or more counties. Here, it's hard to find a county in the state of Florida that is not going to be effective. So how does state and federal emergency responders deal with something like that?
Well, the magnitude of it means that you're going to have situations where demand is going to exceed supply. So there's going to be some adjudication probably taking place. So the more that citizens can do now to evacuate, to get out of harm's way, the less burden it is on public officials. And government's primary responsibility is taking care of people who can't take care of themselves. So that means people who can take care of themselves need to get out, and they need to get out now, because there's going to be a very, very heavy workload.
Bob, I guess that is the question really that we're dealing with right now, because obviously we have evacuation zones that we're asking for people to get out, but not all people are being asked to evacuate the Sun Coast and the greater Tampa Bay area.
Right, and I think a lot of people must realize that you run from the water and hide from the wind. You've heard that before a number of times. The point is that you don't want a bunch of people evacuating that don't need to evacuate, because they're going to be tying up the roads, causing all sorts of problems for the people that need to evacuate, which luckily with this storm so far, if there's anything good so far to come from it, is that it's just a Zone A, because we're going to get that offshore flow. Had it been a different situation, and it still could, if the storm stays out in the Gulf, there could be more of that wind of bringing the water onshore. But right now, as it stands, the storm surge is not going to be that great here. Something we can manage 3 to 6 feet at its height, and that'll be mainly after the storm has passed north of our particular location. But as far as the people are concerned, a lot of people are wondering, should I evacuate? If you are at home and your home is protected properly with wind shutters of some sort or film over the windows, and you have a safe room and you're out of the evacuation zone, you're going to be hunkering down and you're going to be ready to go, and you should be ready to go for at least 3 days. I think the power is going to be out longer than that, because this is such a widespread storm with so many implications as far as power outages go.
That's what gets me so concerned. All right, we are just getting warmed up here. We'll have much more on Irma right after we check Bob's first alert weather, so stay with us. Welcome back. How bad will Irma be on the Sun Coast? Are the Sarasota police ready, and what can we expect afterward? Joining us for more is ABC 7 Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan, Sarasota Police Chief Bernadette DePino, and joining us by Skype is Scott Wells, who helped lead disaster response for FEMA and the Defense Department, including the recovery after Hurricane Katrina. And Jeff, I want to ask you this question. You know, this is really hard for FEMA and other federal and state responders, because usually they pre-position themselves in anticipation of going to a certain area of a state. What do you do now?
That's for me?
Yes.
Yes. So we have FEMA's repositioned excess commodities like water and blankets and generators and food not needed by Harvey to both the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and Florida. And they have substantial supplies, and they've let contracts out to fill up the supply chain, and they've set up staging areas and these logistical bases throughout Florida, Georgia, all the way up to North Carolina and beyond, with those immediately required resources like food and water. So they've done a lot in preparation. We just have to wait and see what happens.
Now, it's my understanding, although that you do not currently work for FEMA, you still work with FEMA in terms of going into zones where there is a catastrophe like this and helping FEMA do what it's supposed to do. What's your main mission over the next few days?
So my main mission over the next few days is try to expedite procurement of resources and services. So the FEMA administrator has some extraordinary authorities above and beyond the Stafford Act at his disposal to get greater access and quicker access to supplies and resources needed to help Florida, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and all the other states impacted. So that's what I'm working on.
And Chief, what is your main concern in the immediate period after the hurricane? Because we are already getting reports, unfortunately, from down south, other counties where there is looting already taking place.
Yeah, my concern is that people are going to try to get into the area that could be dangerous for them before it's prepped and ready for them. So we always are concerned about people coming back from the hurricanes and the storm too soon. And we understand people want to come back, but we are concerned about people looting. But I can assure the people in our community, our officers are going to be out patrolling. The only time that they won't will be when the winds are so high and dangerous. It's too dangerous for our first responders to be out there. But I'm proud of all of our officers of the men and women of our police department, because they all are ready to come in. We're going to be staffing our shifts. We have double staffs coming in starting Saturday night. There'll be Sunday night. And they'll be out patrolling and making sure that they're safe.
When we were talking in our own staff meeting earlier today, we were talking about cell phones and texting, and Bob was mentioning that cell phone service may be interrupted. You're more likely to be able to text loved ones and to and from the station. With the police, you have your radio systems, and I know you have generators, but batteries on officers' handsets only could go so long. So what do you do there?
Well, we have chargers, so we can recharge them, and we do have generators. But if for some reason our radio systems went down, we have a system just like in the days when my grandfather was a police officer. We'll dispatch our officers right from headquarters, send them out to the scene of where people need help. We'll also have officers out looking for help to help people if they need it. So people be assured, you may see our police officers on foot. Afterwards, you may see them on bicycles or in vehicles, and we have the Tahoes now, which are high enough that they can get through some water. So we really have to see what the effects of the storm are to see how our officers are deployed.
Let's take some questions from people who are writing in on Facebook. For instance, Bob, this would go to you. Justin wants to know, how long after the storm passes will we still get significant wind?
Well, interesting is that when the storm goes to our north, it's going to be we'll be on the weak side of the storm. So we'll get that west to southwesterly flow. By Monday, midday, the storm's winds will be out of here, okay? It'll still be breezy, but you're going to be able to, look out and be careful if you start venturing out. On top of that, we are also going to see the possibility now of some significant rainfall. As the storm is now set to go closer to us, the projection was for not much rain. But now that's starting to change, so we could see up to 8 to possibly 10 inches of rainfall, and with the ground saturated, that's going to also exacerbate our flooding issues that we've seen over the past couple of weeks. So that now becomes another player. So you've got the wind, you've got also isolated tornadoes. That threat was less, and now that has gone up a little higher. So isolated tornadoes are always an issue, and I want to advise people that the first 72 are on you. FEMA does the great job that they do, but they're not going to be coming in there just as soon as the winds stop. You have to take care of yourself for at least 3 days. You may not see anyone helping for 3 days. And in this case, the power, and we talked about it earlier, is going to be a significant problem here across the entire state. FPL has their work cut out for them after the storm.
And Scott, earlier in the newscast, we talked about that it's really important for homeowners to have copies of the insurance policies in order to make contact with their insurance companies afterwards. But how long is it likely to be before people, whether it's here or elsewhere around the state, start seeing representatives of FEMA hit the ground here and help municipalities and folks in terms of what they need?
As soon as it's safe, FEMA already has people on the ground in Florida and Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So, of course, the first few days are going to be focused on response operations, but they'll have call centers set up that people can call 1-800-621-FEMA if you want to register. So you will see FEMA jackets within days after it's safe to get into the area.
All right, Chief, let's take another question. This is one from Dave in our control room. Do you have to live in an evacuation zone to show up at the shelter?
No, anyone that feels uncomfortable or unsafe in their homes can go to one of the shelters. And right now we have 2 open, one at Booker High School and one at Brookside Middle School. Brookside Middle School takes pets. We will have officers staffed there 24 hours a day, and we encourage people to go if they feel at all unsafe in their homes.
Okay,
And people with pets, by the way, I'll have to bring them in cages, and they're not going to be with them when they go through the storm. They'll be separated in another room. Of course, all the animals will be away from the human population.
that I would imagine is incredibly stressful for people. First thing, we also reported earlier in our show that one shelter is already at its capacity, and I would imagine these are people who are coming out from South Florida.
Yes. East Coast, South Florida, they're all coming here, and then people are really uncomfortable, I think, because of what happened with Harvey, and they've seen the images of Harvey. We're not going to have a Harvey flood, but people are just concerned about these storms, and obviously looking at what happened in the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, as well as Puerto Rico and the Northern Leeward Islands. You see those images, and it really hits you hard, so people are going to be thinking about that.
But there are enough shelters in the county, and they've only opened up the ones that they need right now, and they can actually increase the capacities at the ones that are local. And we have other ones that can be opened up and will be opened up if necessary. Right now, neither of the shelters are full.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and we'll have final thoughts from our guests when we return. Welcome back. How bad will Irma be? Are we ready? What can we expect in terms of help afterwards? Our guests join us right now for final thoughts. And Scott, let me begin with you. If you could just take this opportunity to tell our viewers what should we expect from the federal response immediately after the storm?
I think you're going to get a very quick federal response, but most of the response capability is at the state and local level. FEMA brings a big checkbook, and FEMA has great recovery programs, but most of the first responders are going to come from the state and local levels.
And Chief, you are the first responder. As we go into these difficult couple of days, what do you want the people of Sarasota and really the entire Sun Coast to know?
Well, number one, take this storm seriously. Pay attention to our social media. Follow us on Twitter or Facebook, both the city and the police department and the county, and also that your police department is prepared and ready to do everything we can to keep people safe.
Bob, we were talking earlier, we may lose Facebook and other social media platforms as a way of communication. The question I had for you, because I hope against hope.
Yeah, we all do.
What possibility remains out there that it either may turn north sooner so we avoid the worst of it, or continues to go west?
There's still some hope there. We saw that cone. The cone still stretches all the way from just east of Miami and West Palm Beach all the way to 30, 40 miles off the west coast of Florida. So, we were hoping more east than west, because west, if you're in that cone, I can tell you this, that out 3 days, the center of the storm is always in that cone about 85% of the time. There's very seldom does it go outside of it. So that cone is so narrow and so close to us. If it goes west, it's still going to hammer us even harder, I think. So we're hoping more east. And it could go over Cuba still, too.
All right. We'll have to leave it there. FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. We want to thank our guests for being here tonight. ABC 7 Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan, Sarasota Police Chief Bernadette DePino, and by Skype, Scott Wells, who helped lead disaster response for FEMA and the Defense Department, including the recovery from Hurricane Katrina.